She had not felt this way in years. After her husband passed, the house got quiet in a way that had no name. Then one afternoon, a message appeared in her inbox. "I saw your profile and thought you seemed like someone worth knowing." He was a widower, a civil engineer working overseas, handsome in a gentle, tired sort of way. He wrote every morning. He remembered her birthday. He made her laugh. 6 months later, she wired him $40,000. She never met him. He does not exist. This is not a rare story. This is happening right now, today, to someone's mother, someone's grandfather, someone's neighbor who lives alone and just wanted a little company. And if you think you or someone you love is too smart to fall for it, stay with me. Because the people running these scams are professionals. They are patient. They are organized. And they have specifically chosen to target people over 60. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly how the trap is built, why it works so well on intelligent, kind, careful people, and what you can do to stop it. How it starts, the profile that feels too perfect. It almost always begins on a legitimate platform. Facebook, Match.com, Hinge, sometimes even LinkedIn. The scammer creates a profile using stolen photos, usually of a real person, often a European or American military officer, a doctor, or an engineer working abroad. The photos are attractive but not flashy, trustworthy looking, mature. The profile is designed for one demographic, lonely adults over 60. Why this group? Because research shows that people in this age bracket are more likely to be widowed or divorced, more likely to be living alone, more likely to have retirement savings, and, critically, more likely to be unfamiliar with how online fraud has evolved in the last decade. The initial message is almost always kind, calm, a little formal, but in a way that feels respectful, not cold. He or she introduces themselves as a professional, often widowed, often with a child or grandchild they raise alone. The story is designed to mirror the life of the target, lonely, self-sufficient, still capable of love, still hoping. And in the beginning, there is no ask, not a single one, just conversation. The grooming phase, weeks of warmth before the hook. This is the part that people outside the situation never understand. How could someone fall for this? The answer is, because the scammer does not rush. The average romance scammer spends 4 to 8 weeks in what experts call the grooming phase. During this time, they invest heavily. They message daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Good morning texts, good night wishes. They ask about your health, your family, your past. They listen, or appear to listen, in a way that many of their targets had not experienced in years. They say things like, "I have never met anyone who understands me like you do." And they mean it in the way a salesperson means it, because they have said it 50 times before and they know it works. Psychologists who study these scams call this love bombing. It is a deliberate strategy to create emotional dependency before the target has time to develop healthy skepticism. And it works because human beings are wired for connection. When someone offers unconditional warmth, consistent attention, and the kind of intimacy that loneliness erodes, the brain responds. Trust is not a weakness, it is biology. One woman in her late 60s described it this way. "He knew things about me that my own children didn't know. I had told him everything. I thought that meant something." It did mean something, to her. To him, it was data. The crisis, always out of reach, always in trouble. At some point, usually after several weeks of daily contact, the story shifts. He is working on a pipeline project in Turkey, and there has been an accident. She is a nurse in South Africa, and her equipment was stolen. He is a U.S. soldier overseas, and his pay has been frozen due to a bureaucratic error. The details vary. The structure never does. Something has gone wrong. It is temporary. He just needs a bridge loan. Just a few $1,000s until the project pays out. He will pay it back double. He hates to even ask. He has never had to ask anyone for anything like this before. This is where the manipulation reaches its peak. By this point, the target has invested months of emotional energy. The relationship feels real, because to them it is. The brain does not easily distinguish between a real relationship and a performed one when the signals have been identical for months. FBI data shows that victims send an average of 3 to 5 payments before they stop. Not because they are foolish, but because each payment comes with a new story, a new complication, a new reason why the person cannot come home yet. And always, always, the promise that once this is resolved, everything will be wonderful. The numbers. A billion-dollar industry run like a business. This is not a hobby. This is an industry. In 2023, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center reported that Americans lost over $650 million to romance scams. And that number represents only what was reported. Experts estimate the true figure is 3 to 5 times higher. Most victims never come forward because of shame. The people running these operations are largely based in West Africa, Southeast Asia, and parts of Eastern Europe. They work in organized groups, sometimes called farms, where different team members handle different stages. One person writes the initial messages. Another specializes in crisis escalation. Another handles the financial transfers. They have scripts. They have training. They have shift schedules. Some operations have their employees scamming up to 15 targets simultaneously. There are internal leaderboards, performance reviews, promotions for those who extract the most money, and they are adaptive. When platforms update their fraud detection, the operations shift. When one payment method gets flagged, they move to another. Right now, many are pushing victims toward cryptocurrency, gift cards, or wire transfers, all methods that are nearly impossible to reverse. The average loss per victim over 60 is $9,000, but outliers are common. The FBI has documented individual losses of $200,000, $400,000, even over $1 million. In some cases, victims have remortgaged their homes, liquidated retirement accounts, borrowed money from family members telling them it was for medical bills. Why smart people fall for it? The psychology nobody talks about. Here is the thing that gets left out of most coverage of romance scams. The victims are not gullible. Study after study confirms this. Intelligence, education level, and professional background have almost no correlation with vulnerability to this type of fraud. What does correlate? Loneliness, grief, and the particular vulnerability that comes from being at a life stage where social networks have naturally shrunk, where friends have moved or passed away, where children are busy with their own lives, where the world has gotten smaller and quieter. Researchers at Stanford and AARP have both documented what they call the sunk cost trap in these relationships. The longer someone has invested, emotionally, financially, the harder it becomes to accept that the investment was a mistake. Accepting that the relationship was fake is not just about losing money. It means confronting the reality that intimacy you felt deeply was manufactured, that the love was a product, that you were a target, not a person. For many victims, denial is not stupidity. It is self-protection. This is why family members and friends often cannot break through by simply presenting evidence. Showing someone proof that their online partner is a scammer can backfire, because the victim has to choose between trusting the evidence and trusting the relationship they have built. And for months, the relationship has felt more reliable than almost anything else in their life. The warning signs, what the scam always has in common. Despite how personalized these scams feel, they follow patterns. And once you know the patterns, they are visible from a distance. The person is always working overseas, always in a profession that sounds credible and explains why travel is impossible. Military, engineering, medicine, offshore oil. They can never video call. Or when they do, The feed freezes, the connection drops, the picture is blurry. They have technical problems that conveniently prevent clear visual contact. They fall in love very fast. Within 2 or 3 weeks, they are using language that would be remarkable even in a long-established relationship. You are the first person who has ever truly understood me. I have never felt this way before. The emotional escalation is designed to move faster than rational skepticism. They avoid direct questions. Ask them something specific. What street they grew up on, the name of their college, details about a place they claim to know. And the answers are vague, redirected, or answered with a question of their own. And eventually there is always a financial need, always urgent, always with an explanation for why no other solution is available, always with a promise of repayment that never comes. One retired teacher described it. Every time I started to have doubts, he would say something so warm, so specific to me, that my doubts felt like a betrayal of him. He had turned my own critical thinking against me. What happens after? The shame that keeps victims silent. When the scam finally collapses, when the victim runs out of money, when a family member intervenes, when the scammer simply disappears, what follows is often described as a grief unlike any other. It is not just the money. For many victims, it is the loss of a relationship they believed was real, a future they had planned, a person they had introduced to their children through photographs, a name they had said out loud in quiet rooms. And layered over the grief is shame, intense, paralyzing shame, the kind that makes people not report to law enforcement, not tell their children, not seek help. One study found that 59% of romance scam victims over 65 told no one for at least 6 months. Many never told anyone at all. This silence is exactly what the scammers rely on. It is built into the design. Because a victim who is too ashamed to report is a victim who will not warn others, who will not cooperate with investigators, who will sometimes, tragically, be targeted again by the same operation posing as different people. Mental health professionals who work with this population describe outcomes similar to PTSD, hypervigilance, social withdrawal, depression, loss of trust in one's own judgment. The psychological damage can outlast the financial damage by years. How to protect someone you love. If you are watching this because you are worried about a parent, a sibling, a friend, here is what the research actually says works and what backfires. Do not lead with mockery or disbelief. Telling someone, "I can't believe you fell for this," closes the conversation immediately. They will protect the relationship over the criticism every time. Instead, ask questions. Gently. Have you ever been able to video call? Not just voice, actual video where you could see them clearly. Has he ever asked you for anything financial? Let them arrive at the uncomfortable answers themselves, because self-discovered doubts are far more durable than doubts someone else installed. Suggest a reverse image search of any photos you have been sent. This is free, takes 30 seconds on Google, and frequently reveals that the profile photo belongs to an entirely different person, a model, a real military officer, a fitness influencer whose identity has been stolen. If money has already been sent, report it. To the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov, to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov. Recovery is rare but not impossible, and every report contributes to investigations that do, eventually, bring some of these operations down. And if the person is resistant, if they push back, if they insist you are wrong, if they choose the online relationship over your concern, do not walk away entirely. Stay present. Stay patient. The scam will end one way or another. When it does, they will need someone who did not make them feel foolish for falling. The closing. What we owe each other. There is something important to sit with at the end of all of this. The people who are targeted by romance scams are not victims because they are weak. They are victims because they were open, because they were hopeful, because loneliness is a legitimate human need, and they were trying with honesty and courage to meet it. We live in a culture that stigmatizes loneliness in older adults, that treats the desire for companionship after loss as something slightly embarrassing. And that stigma is exactly the environment in which these scams thrive, because victims are ashamed to ask for help, and bystanders are too uncomfortable to ask the right questions. The people running these operations are counting on that silence. They are counting on shame. They are counting on the assumption that adults over 60 should simply know better. They should not have to. No one should have to be an expert in fraud to safely look for connection. So share this, not to frighten anyone, but to arm them. A person who knows what to look for is not an easy target. And a community that talks openly about this stops treating victims like they did something wrong and starts treating fraud like what it is, a crime committed against them, not a mistake made by them. Because at the end of the day, loneliness is human, and what was done to exploit it is not. If this video helped you see something more clearly, hit like, subscribe, and send it to someone who needs to hear it. The truth about these scams is the best protection against them, and someone you love may need that protection right now.